Good day, Neophytes and scholars. I welcome you to World Tree. Today we will be discussing a man credited for creating the very origins of the gods themselves, as well as introducing an entirely new form of education. This ancient Greek not only revolutionized his own mythos, but also the world. May I humbly introduce you to Hesiod, he who emits voice. When compared to his contemporaries, namely Homer, Hesiod was able to distinguish himself by his didactic style of writing. Philosophy. Didacticism being a philosophy that emphasizes instructional and informative qualities in literature, art, and design. Or in layman's terms, using popular art mediums as a way of instilling moral or educational lessons. By utilizing poetry as his medium of choice, Hesiod was able to inlay many lessons into his work, being the first in recorded history to be credited for doing so in both Theogony and Works and Days. He does showcase his most prominent didactic work in Works and Days, however, it is still an underlying theme throughout Theogony as well, which we will talk about. As a quick aside, it might be worth noting that there is still a lot of controversy around the exact origin point of didacticism in terms of it being a general concept. There are countless works in the ancient world that seem to have some form of morality assigned to them, and it's very difficult to trace a lot of their lineage back to one particular author. Many ancient works were actually written through the perspective of God or some form of God in one way or another. As such, it wouldn't make a lot of sense for there to be an author credited for writing them. And in many of them, they were actually written by a group of people. Hesiod was really the first to put himself into a didactic story, thus immortalizing himself as the author. It's really quite interesting, and I'm looking forward to covering both Theogony and Works and Days in subsequent videos. In this video, however, it is my primary goal to enlighten you as to the life, works, and philosophy of Hesiod. In doing so, we will be able to establish the necessary framework to probe deeper into the Greek mythos and belief system. Now let us begin. When talking about historical figures from ancient times, it is only natural that much is lost. As such, there are many schools of thought surrounding the factual events of their lives. I will try in earnest to teach you only what we know for certain and disregard any speculatory information. What we do know is Hesiod was alive somewhere between 750 and 650 BC. He was the son of Dios, who, for all intents and purposes, was an unsuccessful merchant. Likely to avoid debtors or some other form of malpractice, he ended up leaving Syme in Asia Minor, ending his journey to become a farmer at the base of Mount Helicon near the town of Ascra in Boeotia. This town is where Hesiod and his brother Perseus would live most, if not all, of their lives. In the image above, you can see what his trip likely looked like in the modern day at least. So he would have started from what is now Turkey, made his way across the Aegean Sea, gone a little bit inward to mainland Greece, and eventually settled upon roughly the base of Mount Helicon there. Much of what we know of Hesiod's personal life comes from his writing in Works and Days. In Hesiod's own words, he describes the farm as a cursed place, cruel in winter, hard in summer, never pleasant. Despite his disdain for his proletariat life, an aversion to sea travel saw to his confinement, with one notable exception. The death of Athamas of Challis led Hesiod on a journey to cross the narrow strait between the Greek mainland and Avia to participate in funeral celebrations going on at the time, during which he won a tripod in a singing conversation. A tripod, in case you're unfamiliar in the Greek sense, it's kind of like a urn. I'll put one on the screen for you so you can take a look at it. It's essentially a urn or bowl or something of that fashion, a container, supported by 3 pillars, a tripod, of course. And their uses actually differ culturally, but typically they're used as some sense of worship or prayer. Offerings are put in and burnt, things of that nature. It's really quite interesting, but not terribly relevant to our story. It was this gift, or this winning, that gave Hesiod a sense of cultural accomplishment that would spark within him the confidence needed to pursue poetry. Upon returning from his excursion, he created at least 2 poems for which he is known for today, namely Theogony and Works and Days. Theogony begins with Hesiod shepherding sheep, whereas Works and Days seems to serve as an overall biography and didactic poem. As such, many can infer that Theogony was at least started before Works and Days. Upon the death of his father, there was quite a clash between Hesiod and his brother Perseus, ending with Perseus inheriting the lion's share of their father's estate. The end of Hesiod's life lacks a consensus among historians. For that reason, many have speculated as to how his life ended, but almost all seem to agree it was intentionally cut short sometime after leaving his hometown. Before it draws any unnecessary attention, I would like to point out I am fully aware that this image is in fact depicting Cain and Abel. I was unable to find any images from ancient times depicting Hesiod and Perseus, and to be quite frank, I find this picture does it justice. If you're curious about the relationships in further detail, wait until the end and I'll have an announcement to make. But let's move on for now. Now that we have a solid grasp of the man, let us discuss the fruits of his labor. What you will know Hesiod for is Theogony, also referred to as Clash of the Titans. The didactic poem was the first widely accepted work to accurately define the lineage and origins for the Greek pantheon, effectively creating an index for every Greek myth and legend to come before or after, even inspiring modern stories such as the Percy Jackson series by Rick Riordan or Sony's God of War games. The poem itself is a pretty substantial length, clocking in at just over 1,000 lines. However, it is far from insurmountable, especially in the way of didactic scholars, and it actually flows quite naturally. It's a good read for a relaxing summer's day. Works and Days, on the other hand, is far less whimsical and comes across as quite pessimistic at points. This didactic poem serves as an instruction manual for agriculture, as well as a moral guide for life. It is written in a manner that conveys a feeling of honor-bound tradition. Despite its shorter length, around 800 lines or so, it demands far more effort than its mythological counterpart to truly grasp. Now that we have the necessary key points, we can string together a narrative that would explain the change in his philosophy. It is my belief that Hesiod's early life was spent in a form of Phocian pain, at least as so far as to say he struggled with his current position in life, and found the tools he needed to achieve his ambition only after altering his mindset. The change in mindset came by way of exposure to the arts, in the form of his excursion to Evea. It was likely that this heightened sense of cultural awareness led to the groundwork for what would become Theogony. It would be after the death of his father that Hesiod would experience the flip side of a cultured society: bureaucracy. In Works and Days, there are many references to Perseus's cunning and deception in order to remove Hesiod from his rightful inheritance. I believe this run-in with familial betrayal fundamentally stunted Hesiod's creative growth. As a way of reconciling his emotional state, he wrote Works and Days as a message to his brother, communicating the sentiment Although I doubt I will forgive your betrayal, I wish you the best. Aside from Theogony and Works and Days, there are few certain works of Hesiod's remaining today. As such, we can only speculate as to how Hesiod meant for his works to be interpreted. If you would wish to dive deeper into the works of Hesiod, I would like to formally extend an offer to you. I will be reading both Theogony and Works and Days in their entirety and recording it. If you would like to broaden your own horizons or would like to listen out of curiosity, I will be putting the full playlist on Discord for streaming, and it will be available on Patreon for download as well. If you would like to check it out, I'll leave the necessary links in the pinned comments. As thanks for watching, I would like to inject a little bit of fun. I would ask that you comment on your favorite Greek god and why down beneath. I will take my favorite comments and use them to help determine the order of future videos. Thank you so much, my learned followers, and I hope you're able to glean some insight. Until next time, I bid you adieu.